Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by the following. Indiana University's Center for Applied Cybersecurity Research, presenting Security Matters with tips for improving online security in 3 minutes or less. MainSource Bank, headquartered in Greensburg, Indiana, offering products and services to fit every stage of life. More information at MainSourceBank.com. MainSource, life needs a great bank. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Smithville Communications, serving Southern Indiana with high-speed fiber gigabit internet. Smithville Fiber Gigabit Technology. Tap the power.
And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana Newsdesk.
I have to do what is best for my child, and what is best for my child is opting him out.
Many parents are choosing to opt their kids out of the spring ISTEP Plus test. What could happen to local schools if students don't participate?
Roll call shows 94 ayes, 0 noes. The bill has passed.
Lawmakers decided the fate of several key pieces of legislation this week. Ahead, the latest on contentious proposals, including a measure that would lift the ban on Sunday alcohol sales, and a bill that would allow businesses to refuse services to same-sex couples because of religious beliefs. And do you remember this? It's been 30 years since the legendary game where Indiana coach Bob Knight hurled a chair across the floor at Assembly Hall. Why the moment is still a part of Hoosier basketball history. Those stories and the latest news headlines right now on Indiana Newsdesk. Welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Joe Wren. Thousands of students are beginning to take the ISTEP this week, but getting to this point has been a difficult journey. Recurring problems with technology and last-minute legislative changes to trim the length of the test have only added to the frustrations many Hoosier parents feel about the stressful effects of standardized testing. Many parents are deciding to opt out or withdraw their child from this year's pool of test takers. But as State Impact Indiana's Rachel Morello reports, that decision could have serious repercussions for teachers, schools, and even the state.
He just enjoys being a kid, playing outside, playing basketball.
Caswell Woodruff is a 4th grader at Bloomfield Elementary School. Last year, as he prepared to take his first ISTEP, he began relaying horror stories about the test to his mother, Risa.
He would tell me some of the things that the teachers would say about, you have to pass this. And he would just tell me some of the kids were worried and concerned, and just the stresses of the environment in the classroom because of the testing.
Worried for her son, Woodruff began researching, finding any information she could about Indiana's standardized tests. And what she found scared her, too. The
more research we did on the subject, the more we wanted to opt our child out of the test. They're not a reliable and accurate assessment of our child's developmental growth.
Woodruff opted her son out. All it took was a letter to the principal, followed by a meeting to discuss activities he would do during the testing period. She plans to do the same thing again this year. Interest in opting out of the exam is growing. A Facebook page in support of opting out of the spring ISTEP test tripled in followers this month. Likes increased by 20% in the last week alone. And it's easy to understand why, with recent technology issues, flare-up over the length of this year's assessment, and more drama among top government officials in taking action to trim the test. But Indianapolis parent Marianne Schlegel-Ruger wants parents to know what they're getting themselves into if they make the decision to opt out. She knows from experience.
With the system that we've set up, anything that affects the test scores or the test participation affects the schools, affects the teachers, affects the communities that the schools are in, and it affects the children.
There's no law on the books in Indiana about opting out. The Department of Education lets each district decide how to handle it. But there are consequences if enough students don't participate.
It can have a very big impact on state accountability, which means a school's A through F grade. So if students don't have, or schools don't have 95% of their students taking the assessment, that can knock their letter grade and knock their grade down an entire letter, or potentially even more depending on the circumstance.
95% is the magic number for federal requirements too. No Child Left Behind requires 95% participation, or Indiana could see a serious reduction in federal funding. Don't forget, test scores factor into things such as teacher evaluations and teacher pay as well.
As I'm sure you can imagine at some of the smaller schools, even if you're just talking about a couple of children that end up not taking the assessment, that can have a really significant impact, not just on the school, but on the community.
Marianne Schlegel-Ruger's daughter no longer attends the school where she opted out in 2012. It closed in 2013. The public reason? Poor test scores. Ruger says the scores for every child who opted out, including her daughter, were reported as failing.
I have regretted it for the sake of the school because the closing was very sudden. It was very disruptive for our family. It was probably the biggest crises we've ever had.
Despite her family's experience, Ruger says she is neither a proponent nor an opponent for opting out. Instead, she emphasizes the need for parents to voice their concerns about testing where they can best be heard.
Whenever I made that decision for my daughter, I didn't fully know maybe what other options I might have had, which would not have taken care of the test that year for her, or maybe the next, but would have made a difference for the future. I could have instead gotten in my car and driven to this building, and I could have gone and met with senators and representatives and their staff and told them what problems were out there and what we were thinking about perhaps, and how I thought they needed to vote to change that.
As schools begin to administer the ISTEP this week, most Hoosiers will take a collective sigh of relief because the test will take fewer hours to complete than the DOE previously announced. But for teachers and administrators, opt-out may mean test stress is just beginning to build.
The Department of Education will be able to track the number of students opting out at each school once finalized tests are collected. Then when the tests are graded, that data will become one of the factors that comes into play in calculating this year's A through F school grades. Now for headlines, we go over to Sarah Whitmire, who has the latest on this week's top stories.
Thanks, Joe. Court documents confirm police arrested a man in Indianapolis earlier this month for funneling money and weapons to the so-called Islamic State. 26-year-old Nayad Razik, a Bosnian immigrant, was arrested near the airport in February. On the same day, President Obama visited the city. Razik was one of 6 Bosnian nationals based out of St. Louis that was detained and charged with conspiring to provide military supplies, including U.S. military uniforms and rifle scopes, to groups planning to carry out an attack outside of the country. Razik is awaiting trial in Missouri. Officials aren't saying why he was in central Indiana at the time of the arrest. Meanwhile, the U.S. is planning an attack against Mosul, the second largest city in Iraq that is being held by Islamic militants. The success of the U.S. mission is considered by many, including Senator Dan Coates, a potential turning point in the fight against ISIS. The Obama administration announced plans for an invasion in April or May. Critics, including Coates, who's a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, say publicly releasing that timeline was a mistake.
I think the commander was way out of line in terms of defining what we're going to do and when we're going to do it. I mean, it's like I said, it's like the coach of the Colts telling the coach of the Patriots, this is what our offensive plan is going to be, and here's when we're going to do it. We're going to do it in the third quarter, and we're going to use these amount of troops.
Reporters on the ground in Iraq have suggested the U.S.'s decision to outline its plans could be a way to frighten ISIS and give the 1 million people still living in the city time to flee. Coates says now that the plan is known, the U.S. must not rush into it because a failure in Mosul would be a big boost to ISIS in terms of recruiting and recognition as a power. FEMA is withholding more than $6 million in flood mitigation grants from Indiana because of an ongoing dispute over Kokomo's baseball stadium. The city is building a stadium on an area that frequently floods. Some of the land was purchased using FEMA hazard mitigation grants. And as a part of that grant, FEMA says the city was not supposed to build on those areas. Kokomo City officials say they're complying with federal regulations because they've stopped construction on the sections of land in question. FEMA officials say Indiana will not be eligible for any future disaster grants until the issue is resolved. Local government and health officials in southeastern Indiana are trying to devise ways to contain an HIV outbreak infecting more than 24 people. The State Department of Health confirms 26 HIV infections as of today. The majority of those are in Scott County, which usually sees fewer than 5 cases a year. The infections have been linked to abuse of an addictive prescription narcotic. Officials plan to meet Monday to develop a comprehensive strategy for containing the virus. Right now, they're encouraging Hoosiers to get tested for HIV if they've engaged in IV drug use or unprotected sex. It could be 3 years before we know the route I-69 will take from Martinsville to Indianapolis. In 2004, the Department of Transportation indicated the preferred route would be for the road to follow State Route 37, which would be upgraded to interstate standards. But transportation officials say a lot's changed since the report came out a decade ago, so they're commissioning a new study to determine the route the final leg of the interstate will take. It's back to the drawing board. NDOT officials say they want to make sure they're choosing the best interstate route for the state of Indiana and for the region. And they say that might not be following State Road 37's path.
The airport's been reconstructed. There's been some large rail facilities put in on the west side and downtown. We just want to look at everything that's changed between the initial time frame and today, look at the impacts of the project.
The study will analyze a number of route options and look at things such as soil condition, historical and archaeological implications, human impact, etc. That work will begin within the next couple of weeks. NDOT is hosting a series of public meetings right now to hear what people think about looking outside of the originally planned I-69 corridor.
The way the corridor is laid out right now, it's going right through the middle of town, and that's something that I'm really against and opposed to. I feel like it's going to split our community right in half.
NDOT officials declined to specify when a list of alternative routes will be released, only saying that more information will be available as the studies are completed and they continue to hold public meetings. Another part of the study, beyond just looking at the route, is identifying funding for the last stretch of I-69. That can't be done, though, until the environmental survey is finished. NDOT anticipates the survey will be done by 2018, and then that'll free up some federal money for design, land acquisition, and construction. NDOT won't establish the timeline for road construction until they've determined where all the funding for the project will come from. The number of students enrolled in Indiana's voucher program increased more than 50% this year, with fewer students having previously attended public school. Take a look at the numbers of students receiving scholarships starting with the year 2011 through 2012, the first year Indiana offered them. There are 7 times more students using vouchers this year than in the first year the program was available. The eligibility requirements to receive a scholarship have expanded each year, which could contribute to the increase in numbers. After deliberating for less than 3 hours, a Bartholomew County jury came back this week with a guilty verdict for Samuel Salee and recommended he be sentenced to life without parole for killing 4 people. Alex McCall reports.
The quadruple murder happened at this home in Waynesville in 2013. Investigators suspect the killings were related to a meth deal.
It was a long investigation, a horrible crime, one of the worst crimes ever committed in this community, certainly in the time that I've been serving as prosecutor for a little more than 12 years.
Bartholomew County Prosecutor William Nash decided early on not to seek the death penalty because he didn't think 57-year-old Sully would live long enough to be executed. A judge will formally sentence Sully April 2nd.
Indiana is the first state selected to participate in a study with national research company Gallup to survey recent college graduates and gauge the effectiveness of their degree. State Commissioner for Higher Education Teresa Lovers announced the partnership during her State of Higher Education address Monday. The survey is based on the Gallup-Purdue Index, which surveyed 30,000 students nationwide about satisfaction with their college degree after graduation. That index shows students who believe universities are engaged in their learning are also more engaged in their job.
Students need more job-focused experiences that enrich their academic learning. Colleges can do this by making internships and partnerships with faculty, industry, and organizations widely available and expected for all graduates.
In an effort to help colleges achieve that expectation, the Higher Education Commission is sponsoring a new statewide Career Ready campaign this spring. Former Indiana House Speaker John Gregg is gathering information about a possible second run for the governor's office. Gregg was the Democratic nominee for governor in 2012 when he lost to Mike Pence in the general election by 3 percentage points. He says he plans to make a decision about whether he'll run again sooner rather than later. In October 2013, Gregg said he would not run in 2016 because he wanted to clear the way for other potential candidates. A former president of Notre Dame University, hailed as one of the most influential figures in higher education, has died. Reverend Theodore Hesburgh died Thursday in South Bend at the age of 97. Hesburgh held 16 presidential appointments during his life, including chairing the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights and the Select Commission on Immigration and Refugee Policy. Hesburgh was the Notre Dame president from 1952 to 1987.
And it's not only a sad day up there in South Bend, but it sounds like throughout the state as well.
He'll surely be missed here in Indiana.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk. A group that defeated the proposed constitutional ban on same-sex marriage is making another appearance at the State House. We'll explain what they're fighting for this time around. Adoptees are pushing for access to their birth certificates, but opponents of a bill that would open those records say it could have serious consequences for mothers who made the difficult decision of giving up their children. And why something Bob Knight did 30 years ago was still ingrained in Hoosier basketball fans' memories. All this right here on Indiana Newsdesk.
I can change the world with my own 2 hands, make it a better place with my own 2 hands. I'm gonna make it a brighter place with my own 2 hands. I'm gonna help the human race with my own 2 hands. I can hold you in my own 2 hands, and I can comfort you with my own 2 hands, with my own 2 hands.
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. Lawmakers are narrowing down what bills they will pass this legislative session. Several measures died this week, including legislation that would have lifted a ban on Sunday alcohol sales. The bill's author pulled the bill after he could not muster enough votes to pass it. The contention was a set of regulations requiring grocery stores to confine alcohol to one area and put hard liquor behind a counter. Retailers said the restrictions would force them to spend millions redesigning their stores. After 6 years of work, the Indiana House of Representatives unanimously approved a proposal that would establish grants for local community corrections programs and drug rehabilitation services that aim to keep people out of prison. The bill's authors say similar efforts have proven successful in other states.
It is more effective at reducing crime than what we have been doing. That's the number one thing. And then the bonus is it is going to save us an unbelievable amount of money.
A proposed budget making its way through the legislature sets aside $80 million over the next 2 years to fund the grant program. The state Senate has passed a bill aimed at creating extra protections for religious accommodations in the workplace, but opponents of the bill are also ramping up their efforts. The group that successfully fought against Indiana's proposed constitutional amendment banning same-sex marriage last year is joining the battle against the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. Freedom Indiana argues the bill could legalize discrimination, allowing businesses to refuse service for gay couples, for example. The House now takes up the measure. Lawmakers are once again on the way to tightening restrictions on the sale of cold medicine. A bill the Senate passed Tuesday would require Hoosiers with drug-related offenses to obtain a prescription before purchasing ephedrine or pseudoephedrine, 2 drugs that are used to make methamphetamine. And the Indiana House unanimously passed a bill that would put incubator-like baby boxes at fire stations, police departments, and hospitals. Indiana has a law that allows parents to legally and confidentially give up their newborns at those locations. If the bill passes, Indiana will become the first in the nation to use the baby boxes. The General Assembly is on its midterm break and will be back to consider more bills next week. Most of the state's adoption records are sealed. Anyone who was born before 1994 can't get access to their original birth certificate. There's a measure legislators are considering this session that would change that. But as Barbara Harrington reports, the proposal is sparking a debate about a mother's rights to privacy and an adoptee's rights to information.
But if you can see my two, look, I mean, how much they are like her.
From the moment you step inside Pam Kroski's home, it's clear her life revolves around family.
These are my sisters.
Her rooms are full of pictures of nieces, nephews, and siblings. But for decades, the face at the center of so many frames was a stranger to Kroski.
It's like starting a book at chapter 2. When you're missing that first chapter of a book, or the first part of your life, or that missing piece of the puzzle, you always have this sense of loss.
Kroski was adopted into a loving family as a baby, but she spent much of her childhood wondering about her birth mother.
It started, you know, forever ago as a kid, wanting to know who I looked like, you know, who I acted like. Did I act like anybody that, you know, I was related to? You know, nothing.
As an adult, Kroski started searching for answers, but because of when she was born, finding them wasn't easy. The state sealed all adoption records from 1941 to 1994.
In Indiana, there's a box that you can check and it says legitimate, yes or no. Mine says no, so I'm not legitimate. So as a kindergartner starting school, they don't want that kind of birth certificate to end up, you know, for the school corporation to see.
But by sealing those records, Kroski says it's difficult for adoptees to get crucial information, not just about their birth families, but about genetic illnesses. Senate Bill 352 would allow adoptees born during the sealed records period to more easily access their original birth certificates. Currently, both the adoptee and the birth parent have to file written consent forms with the state registrar for the original birth certificate to be released. Republican Senator Brent Steele from Bedford says it can be a long and difficult process. That's why he's sponsoring the proposal.
Any adoption prior to 1941, they have access to those records. Anything after 1993, they have access to those records. If you happen to fall in that slot in between, you do not have access. And that's not healthy for a society to have a dichotomy of rules and standards applying to the citizens of their state just because of a difference in the year when their adoption took place.
But what Steele sees as an issue of equal access to records, Indianapolis attorney Steve Kirsch sees as an infringement on privacy. The proposed law would allow all adoption records to be released regardless of when the adoption took place. The only exception is if a mother signs a non-release form.
If this bill goes into effect, there are going to be women from 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago who thought that their secret was safe, who may get a knock on the door from someone saying, guess who I am?
Kirsch says the bill is unfair because the state has no way to notify all of the mothers who gave children up for adoption between 1941 and 1993 that they need to file a form to protect their privacy.
I don't believe that adoptees have a greater right to information than birth parents have a right to privacy. I don't believe their rights are greater. I think their rights are equal. And if a birth mother who has made the most loving, courageous decision of her life chooses to come to peace with her decision by keeping a secret, who are we? Who is the legislature? Who is the adoptee to say that that's not all right?
This is my mom.
Back at Pam Kroski's house, the walls tell a story of a successful reunion between an adoptee and her birth mother. But she says that's not the goal of this bill. She's fighting for the release of information that could be life-changing.
When we get our identifying information, of course, our birth mother's name is going to be on there. There'll be other facts too, though. There'll be our weight, the hospital we were born in, you know, how long was the, delivery. I mean, just little things like that mean so much to us. It actually gives us this fill of this void we had. And it's almost like when you get that birth certificate, it's like a treasure.
A similar bill failed to win the approval of the legislature in 2011. Kroski is hopeful there will be a different outcome when the House considers the bill in March. Bob Knight led 3 of his Indiana men's basketball teams to an NCAA championship, 1 national invitation tournament championship, 11 Big Ten conference championships. He received National Coach of the Year honors 4 times, and in 1984, he coached the USA men's Olympic team to a gold medal. But one defining moment happened 30 years ago earlier this week when the Hoosiers played host to Purdue.
Shooting the technicals. Looky here. Bobby Knight just threw his chair.
Herald Times editor Bob Zaltzberg says that moment is remembered because it was the epitome of the controversy over whether Knight did more harm than good.
A lot of people still do recognize, as I do, that he did a lot of great things for Indiana University, but in the end, the controversies just got the better of him.
And after that memorable game, Bob Knight coached IU for another 15 years before being fired for controversial behavior. Well, that's the end of this program, but our work continues online as we cover the news throughout the week at WTIUnews.org. Have a great weekend.
Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by the following: Indiana University's Center for Applied Cybersecurity Research, presenting Security Matters, with tips for improving online security in 3 minutes or less. MainSource Bank, headquartered in Greensburg, Indiana, offering products and services to fit every stage of life. More information at MainSourceBank.com. MainSource, life needs a great bank. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Smithville Communications, serving Southern Indiana with high-speed fiber gigabit internet. Smithville Fiber Gigabit Technology. Tap the power.
And by WTIU members. Thank you.